Before you scroll away, pause for one breath, because what you're about to hear isn't just a story, it's a moment that changed millions of lives. If you believe calm can be louder than chaos, if you believe one choice can ripple across the world, you're in the right place. And if this story moves you even a little, remember to like this video and subscribe to the channel so more stories like this can reach the people who need them most. The convenience store was loud in all the wrong ways. The freezer hummed, the bell over the door rang, and a child's fingers tapped nervously against a cereal box. Daniel Reyes stood in line with his 6-year-old daughter, Maya, balancing a basket on one arm and a long day on his shoulders. He was a single dad, an overnight janitor, and a man who had learned that staying calm was not a personality trait but a survival skill. Maya had insisted on the cereal with the cartoon astronaut on the front. Daniel had smiled and said yes, even though it cost more than he wanted to spend, because sometimes saying yes was the only joy you could afford. That's when the shouting started. A man burst through the door with a hood pulled low and a gun shaking in his hand. The cashier froze. Someone screamed. The world shrank to a single sound. Maya's breathing, suddenly fast, suddenly scared. Daniel knelt, slowly, like he was teaching her how to tie her shoes. He didn't run. He didn't argue. He didn't look at the gun. He whispered a story about astronauts who breathe slowly in space so they don't float away. He told her to count her breaths with him. In and out, in and out. Across the store, standing near the drinks cooler, was Victor Hale. Victor was the kind of man whose name opened doors. CEO of a global logistics company, cover of business magazines, a net worth that made numbers feel imaginary. He had stopped for water after a late meeting, annoyed that the store was crowded, annoyed at the noise. When the robbery began, his first instinct was calculation, exits, angles, risk. But then he saw Daniel. He saw a man with nothing flashy about him, no suit, no confidence that came from power, choosing calm like it was oxygen. Victor watched as the robber barked orders and Daniel raised a hand, not in defiance, but in reassurance, keeping his daughter's eyes on his own. The robber demanded phones, wallets. The cashier fumbled. Time stretched thin. Daniel slid his wallet across the floor with his foot, never standing, never breaking the rhythm of Maya's breathing. The gun waved closer. Daniel spoke softly, telling the robber there was enough money, that everyone would be okay. He wasn't negotiating. He was grounding the room. When the sirens wailed in the distance, the robber bolted. The store exhaled. People cried. Maya clutched her dad like he might disappear. Victor felt something crack open inside his chest, a memory of being 6, of being afraid, of a father who had never learned how to stay. Life moved on the way it always does after almost disasters. Statements were taken. The store reopened. Daniel returned to work that night, scrubbing floors while Maya slept on a borrowed couch at a neighbor's. He didn't tell anyone he was shaken. He didn't tell anyone he was tired of being brave. He just kept going, because that's what single parents do. A week later, an envelope arrived. Thick, heavy, no return address Daniel recognized. Inside was a letter written on expensive paper, and a business card with Victor Hale's name embossed in gold. The letter was simple. It thanked Daniel for his courage. It said Victor had been watching. It asked if Daniel would meet for coffee. Daniel almost didn't go. He had learned to distrust offers that sounded like miracles. But curiosity won. At the cafe, Victor didn't lead with money or praise. He asked about Maya. He listened. He apologized for the world being the way it was. Then he asked Daniel a question that landed like a challenge. If you could change one thing for families like yours, what would it be? Daniel didn't hesitate. Childcare, stable schedules, dignity at work. He spoke about parents choosing between jobs and kids, about panic disguised as calm. Victor took notes. What happened next shocked the world not because it was flashy, but because it was sustained. Victor announced a sweeping initiative across his company and its partners. Living wages tied to local costs, on-site childcare, flexible shifts, paid emergency leave. He named the program, Breathe. He credited a single dad he met in a convenience store. Reporters swarmed. Shareholders grumbled. Victor held firm. Daniel was offered a job, not a handout, but a role training teams in crisis response and emotional regulation, because calm, Victor said, was a skill worth paying for. Daniel said yes, on one condition, that the program include scholarships for workers' kids. Victor agreed. The internet argued. Some called it a stunt. Others shared their own stories. Then the data came in. Turnover dropped. Productivity rose. Families stayed together. The noise quieted. Months later, Daniel stood in Maya's school auditorium watching her sing on stage, confident and loud. Victor sat beside him, clapping off beat, smiling like a man who had learned something late but for good. Daniel felt the weight on his shoulders lighten, not because life was easy, but because it finally felt possible. The night of the robbery replayed in Daniel's mind sometimes, but it no longer ended with fear. It ended with a room breathing together. With a reminder that calm is contagious. That watching matters. That power, when it learns to listen, can become purpose. If this story reminded you that your choices matter, even the quiet ones, take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Share it with someone who needs to remember that staying calm in a storm can change the world. Because sometimes the most shocking move isn't force or fury. It's choosing to breathe, and helping others do the same.